My name is Robin, and welcome to English Grammar Now. Today, we're talking about I can, I could, I should. These are modal verbs. We've already seen some examples of what we call helping verbs. Sometimes we use two verbs put together to, for example, change the tense or change from active into passive. Sometimes we call these helping verbs because they help the main verb. We've seen that to be is a verb often used to help in the continuous tenses and to make a passive sentence. We've seen to have used for the perfect tenses. And we've seen will or be going to are used to talk about the future. None of these is the main verb, but each of them is helping the main verb to communicate in the sentence. So, for example, we haven't been to the theater in a long time. That's the present perfect, using to have to help the verb to be. The second example, I am working for a local company. We're using to be in the present continuous. In the third example, he will arrive on the afternoon flight. We're using will as a helping verb to talk about the future. And in the last one, my parents were told that I could apply online. This is the passive, using to be as a helping verb. Modal verbs are also helping verbs. You may have seen them. Here's a list of modal verbs. Can, could, be able to, may, might, shall, should, must, have to, need to, will, and would. These modal verbs can have many different meanings in different kinds of sentences. However, we can summarize different kinds of meanings like this. Modal verbs are often used to describe ability, permission, possibility, or obligation. Those are some big words, but we're going to look at some examples today, starting with can, could, and should. First of all, can. Can is used just like other helping verbs. It comes before the main verb. And if you're making a question, you use the helping verb at the beginning to start the question, then the pronoun, then the main verb. So, for example, Dave can write poetry very well. I can see my house from here. Can you play the guitar? All of these are talking about ability. Ability means what you know how to do or what is generally possible to do. So we have a couple of examples. He can play the guitar. He can't play the guitar. We can use it to describe what we know how to do or what is possible. We can also use can with a different meaning. Take a look at these example sentences. You can take the extra shoes by the door. Dave can go out with his friends tonight. Can I go to the bathroom, please? These are also sentences that use can. However, the meaning of our use of can is different. These aren't about ability. Of course, it's possible for you to go to the bathroom. It's possible to take the extra shoes. But these sentences are talking about permission. When we use can to talk about permission, we mean that someone is deciding what is allowed or not allowed. So, when we're using these sentences, they might come from someone with authority, like your mother or father, maybe your teacher or your boss. So when we use can to talk about permission, we're talking about what we're allowed to do or not allowed to do. It doesn't matter if we're using can to talk about ability or permission. We have to look at the negative form, which will be the same for both meanings. We could say can not as two separate words, but this is very uncommon. More likely, we will use the word can't if we're using cannot in an informal situation. If we want to use the little more formal version, we will say cannot. But if you're spelling it, you put them together as if they are one word, C-A-N-N-O-T, with no space in the middle, cannot. For example, we could say, I can't see the stars tonight because it's cloudy. Or, we cannot wait for the conference. You can see that cannot sounds the same as can not, but when you're spelling it, be careful not to add a space. Let's try it out. You can use can or can't or cannot to make some sentences about what you are able to do or not able to do. There's a list of 5 different actions. Write a sentence about whether you can or can't do these things. Give it a try. Here's some example sentences about what I can or can't do. I can play the piano. I learned when I was a child. Number 2, I can't run a marathon. I think that would be very difficult. Number 3, I cannot sleep on a bus. There's too many noises. Number 4, I can speak 2 languages, a little. And number 5, I can bake bread. I hope you are able to make sentences about what you can or can't do using these 5 verbs. Now let's move on to could. Just like can has more than one meaning, could also has more than one meaning. Could can be used as the past form of can. Modal verbs don't really have a true past form, but some of them, like can and could, can be used to talk about the present or the past. Can is present, could is past. So when we are talking about ability, if we want to talk about what someone was able to do in the past, we use could. For example, Dave could write poetry very well. I could see my house from there. Could you play the guitar as a child? All of these sentences are talking about ability, but ability in the past, not now. We also use could to talk about giving and asking for permission. When we use could instead of can, it's a little more polite. For example, could I have your phone number? Or, could you pass me that newspaper? Both of these are asking for permission, and they're more polite than asking, can I have your phone number? Can you pass me that newspaper? So we might use could instead of can if we're asking permission from someone we don't know as well, or someone who's a little more important than us or older than us. We can also use could in one extra way. We can use it to make a suggestion. We might say, we could eat at the new Mexican restaurant tonight. Or, you could take the castle tour tomorrow. Or, They could sign up for summer school to improve their grades. All of these are suggestions. They're ideas for someone else to consider. The other person can think about it and decide if they want to do that thing. So could can be used for suggestions. It has three possible meanings then: ability, permission, and suggestions. We need to be careful, however, when switching into the negative form or the question form. If you change these sentences into the negative, it's going to change the meaning of the modal verb. We couldn't eat at the new Mexican restaurant means it was impossible and that it's past. If we say, could they sign up for summer school to improve their grades? That's asking for permission. One more modal verb to look at is should. We use should most of the time to give advice or to describe the best situation. For example, we should visit Grandma in the hospital. You should buy that hat. It suits you. They shouldn't get married. They're too young. All of these sentences are examples of recommendations or advice. You're telling someone what you think is the best situation. Sometimes we use should to talk about things that are going to happen in the future, things that we expect. We also add words like shortly or soon or different time phrases to show when we think this will happen in the future. For example, we should be arriving shortly. You should get a call back from the office soon. It should rain tomorrow. In these sentences, we're talking about the future. These are things that we expect will happen, and the phrases highlighted in orange show when we think they will happen. Let's look at a conversation that uses these modal verbs. Excuse me, could you tell me how to submit my application? Of course, you can find a link on our website, or you could print it out and bring it in. I have it here. Could I give it to you now? Absolutely. Let me check. You should have your phone number at the top. Can you just add that now? Yes, there. Great. I'll submit this and you should hear back in 1 to 2 weeks. You can call if there's any problems. Here's where we see modal verbs being used in this conversation. You can see that this is quite a polite conversation because it's between two people that probably don't know each other. So in the first question, could you tell me how to submit my application, uses could instead of can to be more polite. Thanks for joining me to study modal verbs today. We'll be looking at more modal verbs in the next episode. See you soon. Goodbye.